Chinua Achebe, the famous African writer, once said, "When a house is on fire, you don't start running after a rat that has come out of the huge inferno." But this is just what I want to do. This is Sound Passion Africa. My name is Joshua Itumo. The case of Ezra Chiloba's Form 34B. Form 34B.
So the case that is before us is a phonology submission on Chilobai, and the petitioner they are the EL speakers of Kenyan English. The lead counsel is Joshua M. Itumo. The first respondent is Ezra Chiloba, the commissioner for IEBC. He is actually the CEO. Then the case before us, before this court, is a deletion of the plosive T in Form 34. That's Chiloba in a Form 34 performance.
We expect that the returning officers are going to scan Form 34B. We expect that the returning officers are going to scan Form 34B.
Yes, I believe you heard clearly. So to contextualize this case, we first need to define language. I will prefer a definition by George Traeger that language is a system of arbitrary vocal symbols by means of which members of a society speak or they use language. In this particular definition, language is first and foremost a system or a discipline. Then it is arbitrary or conventional. It has to be agreed upon. Then it uses vocal symbols, that symbols associated with speech. The fourth issue here is that language is used by members of a community or society. In our case, the Kenyan speech community. And lastly, we use language to communicate. And also, language tells a lot about us. That's what we notice. So the following terms are relevant to this particular case. One is that of accent, and this is the pronunciation that is associated with a particular dialect. So we talk about the RP accent, that's a received pronunciation. So accent is a community or a group affair. It's not an individual's case like the case of Ezra Chiloba. An idiolect, on the other hand, is an individual's idiosyncratic pronunciation or performance. So we want to submit that Chiloba uses an idiolect. We don't have a speech community that uses this type of language or speech. So we also further propose that his pronunciation is an aberration. It's a deviation from what Kenyans say. So the Sound Passion Africa takes cognizance of the following causes of language variation. People may vary language depending on the region, the social place, the social community, the group community they belong into, and the context where they are in. So that we talk about dialects, sociolects, and registers. Chiloba is a Kenyan by birth and uses English as a second language, but he doesn't do it like the other Kenyans. Brad P. Kachru, the father of word Englishes, came up with a model for word Englishes and classified or put all the word Englishes into three concentric circles where we wouldn't have a regional variety without a place to belong. We have the inner circle countries such as America, Canada, UK. We have the outer circle such as Kenya, Uganda. We have the expanding circle countries, those countries where English is a foreign language. the CEO select does not fall within any of these circles. Now, the post-colonial English's model by Schneider cannot account for this either. We submit that Ezra Chiloba is not known to belong to a social group which would birth such a weird form of pronunciation. In Kenya, British English is de facto the standard which is adopted in Kenya's educational institutions. The accent associated with this standard British English is the received pronunciation. We will need to look at Form 34 from a linguistic point of view and examine how the British English speakers would pronounce it. Fortunately, phonologists now have a software which can provide a phonetic transcription of texts. The phonetizer. In the phonetizer, that's a software, the British English broad transcription for Form 34 is Form 34. Form 34. You will notice that we do not have the R there. Unfortunately, Kenyan English cannot be transcribed using the phonetizer, but we have researchers that have done this variety. See, for example, Schmid 206, Hoffman 2011, and Itumo 2017. These researchers suggest that Kenyan English would have Form 34. Now, another aspect in this argument is that Chiloba's pronunciation lacks a phonological basis. Within the Chomskyan generative phonology, that is SPE, we wouldn't have an algorithm or a phonological rule that would account for Form 34. Even from the broad framework of government phonology by people like Kaye, Lowerstam, Van Gnaud, and Barclay 2011, we wouldn't have a phonological element that would be associated with such an acoustic ejaculation. Now, what would the Americans say of Form 34? When they are pronouncing this, American accent is rhotic. That is, they will pronounce the R and color the vowels that precede it so that they would say Form 30. I am not a very good imitator of Americans, but one thing that is for sure is that the Americans still preserve the plosive T. In Britain, if we would go back to Britain, which has a linking R, the linking R, which is an R-Sathi form, is realized in contexts where a word ends with an R and is followed by a vowel in the next word. But you see in Chiloba's 34, the R there is not followed by a vowel. It is actually followed by the plosive T. So what are our final submissions? We submit that the Commissioner deliberately deleted the phonological segment T, which is actually phonologically salient in Common English varieties. That we also submit that the respondent unjustly promoted the fecal approximant and even made a laughable flap of it. Of course, to the excitement of equally fecal-headed chicks. Form 34. Now, We would request this court to disallow the use of this approximant in contexts which are not in accordance with the definition of language as a system of arbitrary vocal symbols. The pregnant word here is arbitrary, my fellow phonologists. That's the end of my submissions.